Welcome to the Soccer Coaching Podcast, where we will discuss all things that impact soccer coaching across all levels and ages. Please listen, enjoy, and share your thoughts on the discussions at the Soccer Coaching Podcast.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Soccer Coaching Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Scott.
And I'm your other host, Mark.
How are we doing, Mark?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Had a good
Very
week?
Good. Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
It seems to have calmed down a bit, doesn't it? With the league games all finishing now, it's more relaxed.
It is more relaxed, yeah, and I think even at training it's a bit more relaxed. We're kind of off the AstroTurf, or out on the grass
It's nice,
for the spring and summer. It is nice, yeah. And I think, as we said last week, just a little bit less pressure. It's just about the boys going out there having fun, giving them plenty of football with lots of kind of decision-making opportunities. I think it's just, yeah, it's nice time of the year. And also you've got a reasonable mix of tournaments, which I think neither of us are massive fans of, given the amount of football you get to play when you go to a tournament. But you can't take away from the fact that the players, the boys and the girls, love it, right? They love that
definitely.
kind of that just being there all together and running riot and then playing football, running riot and then playing football.
There's a lot of social side, isn't there, to that, and team bonding and things, right, outside of just the 30 minutes of football you get for 4 hours.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure the parents love it as much.
No. Okay, so this week, again, I think like last week, it was quite timely in the sense we had a question come into us that was also something we were talking about at the same time, because the theme itself is something we've kind of batted around over the last 4 or 5 years and created documents and things around and done it in slightly different ways each season without maybe getting it exactly how we want it, but worked in it. So shall I read the question out?
Yep.
So we had a question from Gary Thompson, who's from Liverpool. It was a nice long email, but he coaches an under-11s boys team and has done since they were under-6s. Had them confused, so similar to our situation.
Yeah.
And the question, amongst other things, was really, do we use player reviews? And if so, how do we use them and when do we use them? And he also wanted to speak about they've kind of worked that in with their end of season awards, which is quite an interesting way of doing it. So maybe we can try and cover both player reviews and end of season awards if we've got time in the next 45 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Sound good?
That works, yeah, perfect, yeah.
So, Mark, obviously I know when we coached together with the older group now, when they were under 6s, under 7s, we did create something, didn't we? And since then you've kind of moved on and evolved with it. But I guess firstly, what's your general thoughts on player reviews, kind of in the grassroots space, and how you use them if you do?
Yes, yeah. So I think firstly, I do use them, or I have used them. I kind of do two things essentially. One, I have, I guess, maybe a kind of formal document, that a formal kind of review that I share with the parents and then ask the parents to share with the players. I normally do that after what we call phase 1 of our league. So that's at the end of December. So just as we go, just before we start phase 2. So just to confirm, our season's kind of split into 2 phases. You have phase 1, which is October to December, that's league games, and then you have second set of league games, phase 2, from January to kind of end of March, mid-April time. So I usually send or work through the player reviews with my assistant coach through, I guess, December, and we send them early January to the parents, and then I'll talk through the review in a sec, but that's the kind of process. And then, as I said, we ask the parents then to share with the players, to have a read, and then we make ourselves available to talk to either the parents or the players to kind of go through what we've I guess summarised.
Do you send them out in a Word document by email?
Yes.
Twice a season, so at the end of phase 1 and then at the end of phase 2?
Yes,
okay.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, and the end after I should add, the end of phase 2 is more of a discussion with the parents. So it's more of during training, I would just make myself available to talk to the parents. I went asked to speak to all of them, but I would just kind of let maybe assistant coach run the session, or someone else run the session for us, and I would just make myself available with the assistant coach to talk to the parents if they've got any questions or if they would like some kind of feedback on certain areas of how their sons developed over the season, but also then to take in if they've got any concerns around these things as well.
Okay, and I've got a copy of the one that you use in front of me, and I know this has changed a little bit over the season, so maybe we can talk about the ones, and you might even have a copy somewhere of original to where it's got to now, to see how that's progressed.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, if you could maybe give us a blank one, we could put it on the Twitter feed, and then people can see what we're talking about, because it's not easy explaining something visual in for a podcast. But okay, so before we talk about how it's changed, maybe from when you first used it to how you use it now, and what it looks like actually, the criteria and stuff. Just from your point of view, then, what's the purpose of it? And I'm not questioning the purpose. It's just like, I wonder if other people might use it in different ways. So it might be useful to know what you're hoping to get out of doing this and how you see the benefits for whomever.
So I think for me, there's probably 2 or 3 key benefits. I think firstly, it allows myself and my assistant coach to go through the process of reviewing the players against certain areas. So it could be a technical or tactical area, and within that there might be 4 or 5 different items that we would review the player against. And I think it allows us to go through that process and really then to identify where players are strong and where players perhaps are not as strong and might need some development in training, or development outside of training to help them kind of progress or get to where they want to be. So that's, I think, the first thing. So it's good. I find it great from a coaching standpoint that I can go through that kind of process. I think you see that in training, right? And you get an idea, but it's actually sitting down, talking about it, going through it. And I don't like this word, but I'm going to use it. You're almost ranking the players a little bit in terms of who's very strong technically, who needs some help technically, who's strong on a match day and they're impacting matches, who maybe needs some development there. And those kind of things. I guess
by doing it with the coach, your assistant coach as well, at least you'll then confirm whether you're on the same page or not, because you might see things differently, right? And that's okay as long as you both know, I guess. But you can't assume you're seeing things the same that.
Totally agree. The same way. And the way we put it together, I kind of really designed the summary, and I've kind of taken it from other people elsewhere, and you've kind of had some input into it as well. But I kind of really put it together, and then I said to my assistant coach, right, let's you put a version of how you see players in terms of the different items, and we'll talk through what we got on there in a sec, but you do your version, I'll do my version, and then we sat down for about 2 hours and went through to see where we were aligned and where we were not aligned.
Were you surprised? Were you aligned on most things, or was there some surprises?
There were definitely some surprises. I think in general we were aligned, to be honest, so it was quite good. I think overall, I would say my assistant coach marked or ranked players higher, all of the players higher than I did.
Okay. Consistency in the difference is better than someone thinking one's way one way and one's way the other way.
Exactly, I think like in the middle players there was probably a little bit of we weren't quite as aligned, but in terms of like your kind of real top end strong players in certain categories, we were spot on, and maybe the ones that need a bit more work kind of. We were spot on as well. So
the purpose then, obviously, one, working with the assistant coach. The other one is about ranking them. Any other reasons for doing it?
And I think as well, just to highlight for me, I just think it's good practice as well for the parents. It shows that you're kind of, firstly, you kind of care about what you're doing. You care for the player's development, that you're highlighting. These are the things you're really strong at. These are the things that you might need work on, and we're committed to helping your son get better or daughter get better at these areas through training, or these are the things that you could do outside of training. And I know for sure there's a player that maybe identified that wasn't as strong in one area. I know that talking to one of the parents, he's then since then been having separate coaching on a weeknight to help him develop. So I
guess that's the risk, isn't it? Like, or not the risk, but that's down to how it's communicated and handled, right? Because if you're going to give feedback to a parent about their player, and it won't always be positive, because we've all got areas to work on, right? I mean, you can always find something to try and improve.
Yeah.
But is it important how you communicate that back to make sure the parents don't kind of take that the wrong way and maybe get defensive? And rather than dig the heels in and say you're wrong, they actually say, okay, I'm listening to that, and let me see if I can support.
Yeah, and I think it's a great point, because I think you need to manage that relationship, and I think with parents you need to manage the relationship all the way through whilst you're the kind of coach trying to develop their son or daughter. I think even more so when you go through these kind of reviews that you do, because, for example, if it was your son. And I'm saying, look, he's very strong in these areas, not as strong as these areas. In these areas, you may not see that, right? You might be on the sideline and not see that. You're right. You could be blinkered in your view, or you just might have a completely different view. So I'm kind of like before I send the reviews out, I say, look, we're doing the reviews again in December. Please note this is just how we see it. These things can be a little bit subjective, I think, because it's how we see it. We're open to talk about these things, and I would say probably 80% of the reviews that we do, we get a note back from the parent saying, "Spot on, totally agree. I can see where you're coming from. Really appreciate it." And there's probably 15% you don't get anything back, and then you've got maybe the 5%, which could be one or two parents come back and say, "Oh, I didn't agree with this. I didn't agree with that."
Challenge.
Yeah, and I think this time out we had one parent that wasn't kind of comfortable with certain areas, so we spent some time talking to them about it.
I guess if you've got those good, positive, open channels in place already, outside of just the player review process, then that makes the player review process probably a more positive experience for everyone, right? If you've not got that set up in place, you could be skating on thinner ice trying to throw this on top of that as well if you haven't got the other things sorted out first.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think we could almost do a podcast on dealing with parents. I think we promised that we would do that at some point.
Working with parents.
With parents, yeah. I think dealing's a better word, actually.
Managing, yeah. Depends on the parent, right?
But even things, just very quickly, I like a rules of conduct for the parents, and I think I mentioned it before, that talks about how I will behave, how I expect players to behave, and how I expect the parents to behave, and we use that as our document and we go back to that if there's any issues. That's what we go back to if we have to. So
you've got a point of reference.
Yeah, it's a point of reference. So yeah.
Before we look at the criteria, then, because we will post it up, people can see it, but it's worth mentioning how you've structured it out and the reasons behind that. Do you send it out blank at the start of the season and tell parents this is going to be happening? I mean, I probably now they know because you've done it for a few seasons, or did you from the first time you did it? I think the answer to that is no. I think I was with you. We didn't do that, which is maybe a mistake. But if you were starting again, would you? And how would you recommend other coaches who do this or don't do this, if that's something they should consider doing?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. I think if I was organised enough and I'd thought about it 6 months in advance how I want it to look, then I would most certainly send it out and say, look, this is how we're thinking about the reviews. And I think you've got to be a little bit careful, right? This is grassroots kids football. We're not even a team. We're kind of the middle team. So this isn't kind of development centre or an academy. So I think you need to be a little bit careful that with the parents that you're not being too super strict or serious. Although that side, I think it's an important tool for coaches to use, and I would always use it. But you just need to make sure that you kind of again manage that relationship with the parents. But I would send it if I had it ready. I would send it up front so they can see it, and then they might even give you feedback on the template, that things you hadn't thought about. They know that I'm doing the reviews every season, so it's always there. But they don't usually see the actual template before I send it.
No, fair enough. I get that, and I think what we tend to do as coaches, and we kind of do this thing as season unfolds at certain quiet times when we have an opportunity to do that. But if you've got it in place at the start of the season, then sharing out a blank form and just saying that this is what we intend to use, so you know, and the rationale behind it all, then there's no surprises, right? And if people see the criteria and things, and maybe even define the criteria, then people are perfectly clear about what it is you're doing. Yeah. And if you're doing it, and I know you are doing it, and I think everyone, if they're going to use player review, should do it for this one reason, if nothing else, is to help the players, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's to help the player be the best person and player they can be. So if it's built around that premise, then there really shouldn't be, much challenge back. And it is subjective. And if you don't agree on the ranking that a particular player's got, and you've defined the criteria, well, that's okay, because it's just you see it differently. But at least we both know where we stand, and it's okay, and we'll work on these things, and it doesn't make a massive difference unless you're using it as selection or to move players around. That's a different conversation probably. But I think if you're doing the players' interests first, and you're open and transparent about it, and it's coming from the right place and communicating the right way, then it should be another tool as with many tools to hopefully help the individual players improve.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that's the third reason, right? So we do it for help coaches. I think it's one of the reasons. The communication with the parent, but most importantly, as you said, it's about the players and helping develop the players. So they're the kind of three key reasons that we do these things.
Okay, so the form itself then, I mean, we've got, I've got one I use, and we're not a million miles away, I think, because they've kind of evolved from a similar position when we started off a few years back, but they are slightly different. But let's look at your one first then, and just, do you want to talk us through it and explain what you've done and why you've done it?
Yeah, I can, I will do, So I think the way I've set it out is you kind of, you talk about the player, and when I've done this in the past, I've had a player's picture on there and things like that. I didn't do the player picture this time. I think maybe when the boys are a bit younger, under 7s, under 8s, under 9s, it probably worked quite nicely.
Thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I just didn't have a lot of space. I made the reviews a bit more kind of detailed this year than it has been in prior years.
The fun's got now they're under 10s.
Exactly.
Serious now. No pictures.
Serious stuff, exactly.
You get a picture if you're good.
So it's going to talk to a little bit around some of the stats. So what has their training attendance been like this year? So I'd have a percentage in there. So this particular one that I've got in front of me here, they've got a 94% attendance record. They should have a good attendance record because it's my son. So
Still missed a session.
Still missed a session, yeah. So I put that on there, and I think, and it is quite interesting actually. I keep all the stats. I love having the spreadsheets after training. I put who's attended, so I can see over the season who's been there the most and who's kind of got the lowest kind of attendance record, and it actually correlates with how they develop as well, which is, I guess, what you'd expect. Then I got some information about number of appearances, total number of appearances for the club, which again is something I keep, and I think that they quite like seeing that information. How many times they've been captain this year, how many times they scored, how many times they've been man of the match, how many appearances they've made. Then we'll have a player summary. So I have what I call phase 1 player summary. Talks about how they've done, I guess, from September, October through till end of December. And I generally obviously keep these things very positive. And then I have a phase 2 challenge, which is what to work on in the next kind of the next 6 months or the next 3 to 6 months. And again, that's just little, I think, areas for them to really focus on. And then on the right hand side of the page, this is where you're going to get into the actual review part, I guess. So I'd kind of broken it out into 3 sections. You've got technical, you've got tactical, and you've got match day. So in the technical area, you've got ball control, ball manipulation, passing, 1v1 ability, and finishing. And within each of those items, there's a ranking between 1 and 6. You have 1 and 2 are red, and it's kind of below expectations, and 3 and 4 are meet expectations, and 5 and 6 are exceeds expectations. And I must say, I went through quite a lot of dialogue, and I think I spoke to you, I spoke to my assistant coach on this, whether we do this kind of traffic light, I guess, red, amber, green, what we call these particular categories. So as I said, 1 and 2 is below expectation. I think you need to be a little bit careful again when you dealing with parents and dealing with the child, right? You don't want to deflate them, kind of thing. You want to try and be as positive as you can. And I rank the players really around what I think a B team level should be. And again, as we said, it's very subjective. And then they get A for each of those components. Like I said, ball control, ball manipulation, passing, 1v1 and finishing. They would have a rank between 1 and 6.
Yep, makes sense. Okay. And I guess the criteria you selected, I mean, you could pick many things, couldn't you? And it depends really, I guess, on what you value as a coach, and that's fine, isn't it? Your priority, technically, tactically, or match days down to you, and they're the things that you and your assistant coach feel are important. Yeah. Which makes sense. And the rankings got to be the rankings, right? Yeah. So I'm going to challenge you back now a little bit. I've looked at my one. I'm just thinking, and just a couple of questions then. Have you ever given any of your players a 1 or a 2?
There were a few.
Don't name names.
No, name names. There were a few, yeah. There were a few, yes.
That's just the thing. So I just wanted to go. I guess I don't know how brave I would be to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm being honest. And what's the point of having it if you're not going to use it? Yeah. So you should be prepared to, if you're going to have a criteria in there and it's a full range, and if a player fits that criteria, be brave. Why have you got 2 for each one then? I mean, can I be below or really below then, or meeting, or a bit of ambiguity there, or is it just? What's the between 1 and 2, I guess, and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6?
Yeah, it's a good point. And I think, just to be clear, I don't think we gave anyone a 1. So I think the lowest mark was a 2. Yeah. I think that we wanted to try and differentiate between some of the players. So if you think about things like ball control, ball manipulation, you could just have a red, amber, green category, right? That's possible. But I think we were just trying to differentiate a little bit more between the players. So I know that I've got maybe 3 players that are very strong in terms of their control and how they can manipulate the ball. Yeah. There's one of those boys that probably is above everyone else, and I just think I wanted to recognise that they are very, very strong in that respect. Because the other thing that we did as a, I guess, coaching team, we then for the technical component that was spoken through here, we added the marks together for each of those items, so the player would have an overall technical grading or whatever you want to call it, and then we can compare across the players. Yeah. Does that look right? Because it's difficult to look between the individual items, but when you do it overall, technical, it paints a picture. Yeah, exactly. As little Johnny, we think he's the strongest technically. Actually, when we add them all up, does he come out being the strongest? And if he doesn't, we then go back and have a look at a bit more detail against another player. Yeah. Why is that? So that's the other reason we wanted to kind of have that differentiation between them.
Makes sense. And you obviously, your phase 2 challenge is great. So then this is obviously one that came at the end of phase 1, so they get the review, and then they got a challenge for phase 2, which is brilliant. If a player was to score, say, a bit lower in, say, a 2 or a 3 maybe, I mean, a 4, 5, 6 seems like you're the right end of where you need to be, but a 1, 2, 3 particularly, one would be poor. I guess that would be highlighted then in the challenge part for phase 2, so you pick that up. That's you won't highlight it under technical bit as a super strength or weakness. You would just put it in phase 2 as a challenge, right? If your passing's way off and you're a 2 at passing, that's going to be your challenge for phase 2.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. That would, absolutely. And I think some of it depends on the category as well, right? Because like one of the 3 areas that we look at is called match day. Within match day, you've got impact in matches, resilience, physical, leadership skills, and decision making. I think impact in matches is one thing that is difficult to put down as a challenge for phase 2 because it's not very specific, right? It's like how can I improve my impact in matches, and usually that would be linked to something, I don't know, maybe from a technical standpoint or maybe from a tactical, that you're not finding space or your positioning is not great. So it sometimes, and impact in matches could also be linked to the physical side, because you may be very good technically, but especially under 10s when the boys start to get big and the girls start to get big, it becomes, the physical aspect definitely kicks in, and it kicks in at all the age groups. But
yeah, I think if I'm honest with you, Mark, that would be the one thing, and I don't know if you spoke about it at the time or not, but I would say was maybe on your one a bit ambiguous for me personally, because you can impact or not impact in so many different ways that just having it as one category on its own, it almost seems like it should be more. And I think if we look at our one, I'm not saying it's any better or worse, but I think I've tried to break it down a little bit more for that very reason. But again, it's a guide, isn't it? It's not carved in stone. It just is an indication of where you think a player's at in a certain area.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that some of them are linked between the categories as well, right? So like in match day we've got leadership skills, and then in tactical we've got communication. Yeah. So I think there's a link there, right? And I think that's the other thing. As we were doing this, we were looking across the categories. Does this make sense that we've marked them as a 2, for example, in leadership skills, but from a communication standpoint, they're a 6. Yeah. So we've kind of tried to look at it across there as well.
I want to look at the one that I've done for the younger ones, because it's good to compare the two. But before we do, just a question then about if a player wasn't doing well this season. How would you manage it, or how would you manage it prior to the review going out? Just say you had a player that's having a poor season for whatever reason, and when you come to doing the review, it's looking like they're probably going to be getting maybe 1s, certainly a few 2s and possibly 3s, and maybe not too many 4, 5s and 6s. I appreciate we don't want that situation to happen, and hopefully it won't happen. But if it did, a bit of a leading question here, would you just wait to the review to give it out to the parent, or would something happen prior to that situation occurring? Because obviously this isn't something that's just going to happen. You don't sit back and reflect on them and then say, I've just realised now actually little Jim is getting 2s and 3s. You'd have known that from the last 6 months of watching little Jim play football. Yeah. So is it a good idea to wait till the player review and give that to the parent, or would you imagine you'd have had conversations with the player and parent prior to that to try and at least so it wouldn't be such a surprise if they were to get a less positive review.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
What I guess I'm trying to say, we don't really want to get to a situation where this
Definitely
comes
not.
to parents as a shock, do we? Because
Definitely
that's where
not.
we're going to get a problem.
Yeah,
You know, a positive shock's probably okay, but a negative shock's not what you want to happen. And
Yeah.
if you hide behind the player reviews as just sending out some poor information, that's when you might get some kickback, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's right what you're saying, if parents haven't seen it or don't want to read about it, if you haven't done anything as part of that bigger process, it could be a problem.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. I think it depends a little bit on the situation. So you may have a boy that's just joined your team for one reason or another, and he's not.
He needs time to settle, maybe.
Yeah, he's not settled in as well. You may have a boy that's performed really strongly over the last kind of 2 or 3 seasons, and then they've kind of dropped off. You might have a boy that's always been towards the bottom end who actually isn't, he's just stayed there. I think it depends on the situation. I totally agree that you wouldn't want to send this and it will be a shock to the parent. It's like, I think it's almost like a school report, right? This isn't a school report, and it's different, but you wouldn't want to receive a school report about your son or daughter and be surprised about it. You'd be asking the question, well, why didn't you
exactly, that's
tell
a good
me
way of
before?
putting it. Yeah.
So there's been a couple of situations where I've spoken to parents before. Certainly one specific situation where I talked to the parent quite a lot as we've gone through the season around certain things. So yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I was just in my head of thinking, no, it might happen, but you need to make sure you've managed it probably prior to that information going out, and the school report comparison is a good one, isn't it?
Yeah. Just a question for you then. So as you said, we posted this on Twitter, but do you think you could use something like this this is for under 10s, could you use something similar for under 7s? Because I know when we've done this in the past for the younger age group, we've made it a little bit more maybe fluffy and a bit more, do you know what I mean?
So the one we started off originally using was literally, wasn't it? I can't remember. It was basically, we highlighted, I think, 3 or 4 key strengths. Yeah. I think it was five
super skills,
and then 2 areas to work on, wasn't it? And we'd give it out as very positive, though, you know, and it was always, even the areas to work on were like, you're great at this, but could we do a bit more of it? You know, so it was like that. And bear in mind the age group the players were at, this is under 7s and 8s, I think, at the time. So 6, 7s, and 8s probably. Yeah, I think it was okay. And I'll try and dig it out and share that as well. We'll share a few on the Twitter. People can compare and rip apart as much as they want. What I've tried to do looking at this season, I've not used it, and I'm glad we're doing this now because I'm still in 2 minds myself. I've kind of gone to and fro on this whole player review thing. I like the one you've done, and I like the fact that it's for the older age group and stuff, and I think it's got value. And I also know that it's part of the bigger package and how you look after the players and the parents and work with them. So I think it fits in nicely because you manage it right. I think mismanaged, it could be a problem, if I'm honest with you, but I think you manage it right. And so our one's slightly different, and I'll post it up again. But it's similar. We have coachability as a 4 sections: coachability, technical, physical, and match day, and just slightly different criteria in each one. So there's 5 things in each one. So we've got behaviour, desire to learn, effort, understanding, and teamwork as part of coachability. We've got ball manipulation, attacking 1v1, defending 1v1, finishing and ball sharing as part of technical. We've got speed, acceleration, balance, coordination, and strength as part of physical. And match day, which is a bit different to yours, we've got impact with the ball, impact without the ball, because I think you see a difference in players there. Decision making, versatility, which is a big thing for us, and resilience. But like I said, I don't think it really matters. As long as the criteria is important to what you think is important for your coaching principles and what you're trying to get out of the players and work with, then that's really the important thing, isn't it? But what I'm kind of think we've done quite well with this document is we've then taken each of the criteria and given it a definition. So we've explained what we mean by it, because actually someone's decision making, a parent's, might be different to what we're seeing at. So if I give a player a ranking, at least they know what I mean by decision making and what that looks like. And versatility, they might think, well, you know, he's great up front, he can play left side, right side, and centre up front. Well, we mean goalkeeper, back, front, midfield, everywhere, you know. So it's just being clear about it again. And then we give a ranking from 1 to 4. 1 is often below expectation, which you'd hope you'd never see because you'd manage it out during training. Number 2 is usually meets expectation, which, okay, that's okay. And, you know, that's not too bad. But, you know, ideally want to get them into a 3, which is consistently meets expectation. And where possible, and usually this is where their natural ability kicks in a little bit on certain areas and things they just gravitate towards as strengths. Number 4, which is often exceeds. So what I'd hope to see is probably, you know, you've got a lot of 3s there, maybe 1 or 2 4s, possibly a 2 here and there, but no 1s. That's kind of how I see it. And then all we've got is a super strength under each of the 4 main criteria, so coachability, technical, physical, and match day. And then we've got 2 key practices and a summary, as well as some stats and the player photo that we're still using at the moment, but we've not done there. But I've never used it. with the current age group who are now finishing their under-7 season for two reasons. One is I never sent it out at the beginning of the season, and I think that was a mistake. I probably should have got it done and sent it out and said this is what we're going to be using. And second of all, I just think I feel like I might have done a better job this season in communicating that anyway throughout the sessions. I don't necessarily need to give a ranking behind it. I think people probably know where we're at, but maybe I'm making an excuse here. And I don't know. I don't know what benefit it would have, apart from the fact that actually if I did complete it for the players we've got and everything, I think it'd be quite positive. Maybe it's a nice thing to have. I'm not sure it'd be a development tool more than just maybe a little bit of a memento for the season, if that makes sense. And again, I don't know if I'm just making excuses not to do it. And your boy's in the team, so it may be interesting to know as a parent what you think and what, how much you'd value it. I mean, all the kids have done well, so there's certainly I haven't got that issue in the sense that I'm worried about giving 1s and 2s out, because there really isn't any. There really isn't. You could maybe batter 2 for 1 or 2 if you're being really harsh, but I don't think you could. It's all 3s and 4s really. But I haven't used it. But what we have done. Have
you gone through the process of doing it yourself and kept it as a coach?
So, good point. So that's what I was going to say. So the one thing we have used it for more broadly is we've got the 3 teams at under 7. So we've got the red, white, and blue team, the A, B, and C team. So not unofficially, that's not right to say, but a tool of consistency. Myself and the other 2 managers for the other 2 teams have this, and we agreed it up front. So when we're talking about coachability, we're talking about the same things. So if we're looking to see about player movement, and we have a tiered system, so a player doing really, really well in the C team, the blue team would move up to the white team potentially if that's right. But how can those 2 managers have a real clear conversation about stuff if they're looking at different things in a different way? So as a comparison tool, to allow consistency and criteria, I think this would work really well, and I think it is working well. So when I speak to the white team manager, we're like, he knows what I feel is important and what I mean by that. And when we're talking about attacking 1v1 or the ability to make good decisions or be versatile or resilient, we know what we're talking about, and he can give me a clear answer. Well, I think actually, Jimmy's at a 3 there. I think you should look at him, And obviously, it's part of the other thing. We do mixed training sessions and we have them play with stuff, so it's part of it all. But it just allows that bit of consistency. And also, then if you are going to parents and kind of you have to rank the players, not that you would share someone else's kids with another parent, but
that's a good point. Actually, really good point.
So this is coach to parent only. What they do is up to those parents, but you're saying don't share anyone else's out. But at least you can confidence saying actually, the reason we're making decisions about player movement up or down is in the best interests of the player, and it's a consistent perspective from the coaches. So from that position, I think it's an additional tool, which maybe that's a better use for it than the other use.
So I think there's a number of things in there actually. So you would use that as a in terms of discussions with other coaches in the year group,
in the age group,
so that wouldn't, which I think is amazing. I don't think there's anyone else in the club, any other age groups that do that, and I'd wonder if there's any other age groups in any club that do that kind of thing. I think it's fantastic.
And to be fair to the white team manager, he's taken us and put in spreadsheet it out. So literally put the grade in the spreadsheet, you can see it, so we can check all the players. It's really really good. So I mean, once you've got the thing agreed, it's not so hard to do that, but it's a great tool, and it's a great way of making sure we're working collaboratively.
Brilliant. But that wouldn't be the only. That just assists the discussion. That doesn't drive your decision about player movement. It's just kind of a little bit as a talking point. I guess you would still want to see the player to see whether they fit in with the team, whether they enjoy being part of a different team and things like that. Right? It just aids your discussion. That's what it's there for.
Definitely. And I think even the rankings, like coachability is first for a reason. And top of coachability is behaviour, because I'm telling you now 100%. I mean, you can always say the important things here are literally almost go down in order. So coachability is number 1, and under that is behaviour, desire to learn, effort, understanding, and teamwork. For me, that's it. So and we've got that across all 3 teams. So the players understand what, as coaches, we think is the most important thing. You don't have to be technically the best player. You don't have to be the most physical player, and you don't have to be the best match day player. But I tell you what, if you've got the right behaviour and your desire to learn, you put the effort in, and you can understand what we're trying to get through here, and you've got good teamwork, we're happy to have you and we'll work with you. And it's
key, right?
It's for us. It might not be for other clubs, which is absolutely fine, rather like year groups, but it is for us. So you've got that criteria. What would be weird is if you're kind of saying, well, look, little Jimmy should be moving up or down, but actually the stats say something different. Because then we're like, well, we got something wrong here then. So if we got our criteria wrong, or we're looking at it differently, or something's not quite right here. But I'll be honest with you, and again, the numbers reflect it. You don't want to put a kid as a number, but they do reflect it. I think, and that maybe indicates that we've got enough criteria and the right criteria. So actually, this is quite a good representation of where the player is at this moment in time.
Yeah, it's a good point. So let me just ask you a question then. Like for my team, I definitely get a kind of a variance when I do this. The team that you have done exceptionally well this year. You can see how they developed. You may not see that kind of difference in
between
players as a coach. Do you then think that kind of negates the need to do this a little bit because you don't see that difference?
That's a good point. I think that probably is what I was trying to say without wording it as well as that. But I think that's probably it. There is a difference. The boys have different strengths and stuff, but they're not a million miles. The spectrum's not as wide as it might be in other age groups or with a different bunch of players. So maybe that's part of it. Yeah, maybe that's the reason. I don't feel like it's as necessary as it might have been before. When we've used it previously, I felt like it was a real good kind of tool to get the points across to the players that, you're doing really well, but you know what, there's areas to work on. It was a kind of way of highlighting those, but in the most positive way possible. Yeah. Now, with the players we've got, not so there's always things to work on 100%, but they're doing it. They're working on them, and we're kind of getting there. I don't necessarily know that it will help make a big difference in that way. But I am in two minds. If I had said at the beginning of the season, I would definitely be doing it right now. Yeah. But I didn't do that with the parents, and I think maybe I'm tempted to park it for this season, share it out at the start of next season, and then bring it to play under 8s and see how we get on there. Yeah. Maybe just to give it a go then, and just use it behind the scenes now as kind of our way as coaches of looking at the players and making sure we're kind of being consistent again. Yeah. And I think what it also helps you do is when you've got a criteria like this that you know you're going to review players on, then there's your training plan there, isn't it? Because you know what, if I'm going to review a player about their ability to manipulate the ball, but I'm not doing any ball manipulation work in my training plan at any point, then I'm not. That's not fair, is it? And if on match day, if I want versatility, but I'm not rotating the boys around, well then I've done something wrong, or I'm missing my principles and my priorities. So even that, it helped me out to what's important to me as a coach, and these are the things that's important to me. But I'm not saying that's the same for everybody, and you've got your criteria. I mean, we're very similar, but even between me and you, who are very much on the same page in most things with regards to foundation-based football and stuff. Yeah, I think there's differences, right? Small ones, but other people might be like, you know what, I don't actually care about versatility. Yeah. I don't want, but just if that's their principle, it's fine. But they don't put in your criteria and have something else. Yeah.
And I think there could be reasons that were different because the age group could drive some of those reasons, things like that.
And the players you're working with.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So let me ask you a question then. So I think both of us have been on the receiving end in terms of having player reviews, not through the grassroots setup and things like that. I think
with our own kids, you mean?
Yeah, for our own kids, yeah. So I think sometimes as a parent, you're going to receive these things, and I'm trying to think the right thing to say. I think sometimes you receive them and you feel a little bit not deflated, but sometimes you may think, oh, actually, there's not much in there. I can't take anything from what I've got there. So maybe you've ranked all the players, every attribute on a level 3, right? That's not really telling what you do with it. It's not really telling the parent anything, or it's not. How do you then present that to the player? Do you know what I mean? So I think it's down to the coaches and the people that go through and do these reviews. You have to identify it. There must be area. Every player's got an area where they need a little bit of development, and I think it's really important that you just don't go through the process of doing the reviews and just 3-3-3, 4-3-3. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. You have to identify areas where this person needs some work here. This person's super good at this area, because otherwise there's no point in doing the review.
If it becomes a tick box exercise or a pain to do it, don't bother doing it, is it? Because you're dead right. And I think what's consistent with yours and the one we've got potentially for the younger ones is what you've got basically is a summary, 3 super strengths on yours and a challenge. Yeah, which is great. So you've got a 3-to-1 ratio of kind of these are 3 things doing really well, and 1 thing to kind of get better at. Yeah. On the other one, we've got 4 super strengths and 2 challenges and a summary. So again, like big stars next to 4 super strengths and some key practicing stuff, Yeah. So, I mean, to me, the box ticking bit, the grading, okay, it's an indication, but that's all it is. Look at your super strengths and look at your practices because they're the important stuff. Keep doing the good stuff and let's work on those things, and the summaries do that. And I think, again, that's where the parent education is important, isn't it? Yeah. And saying, look, we are going to grade, if you are going to do this way, we are going to grade the players from a 1 to 6 or 1 to 4. It is subjective, at least you know what we're thinking, nothing else. But
Yep.
more importantly, look at the super strengths, because well done, and look at the keep practicing, because that's things we're going to develop. And every child's got the same. So it's not like one's got 2 super strengths and 10 get betters at. Everyone's got 3 and 1 or 4 and 2.
Exactly.
So we're going to find something to try and help your player get better at, and we're going to recognise 4 things they're doing really, really well.
Yeah.
And then if parent A speaks to parent B, no one's got the hump about nothing. If they want to get the hump about the criteria and the grading, that's a conversation with the coach and saying, well, look, okay, I get your point. We'll have a chat about things. Let's see where we go. And I'm just telling you how I see it.
Yeah.
But hopefully, like we said, if there shouldn't be really any massive surprises. A grade or so here is not such the end of the world. But if you're expecting a 3 and getting a 1, then there's something. But again, at least that highlights where your mindset is then, because then there's no surprises if there is player movement down the line, or if you're working on certain things more in training with that particular player because that's how you see it, and they're like, why are they doing more finishing practices? I don't understand it, but well, that's how I see it. And when they start smashing the balls in the top corners, left and right foot, then we can move on to something else, But
I think it's very good points. Yeah.
Will it be interesting to know how other people do player reviews, why they use them, when they use them, and how they use them? We'll tweet these ones out. Yeah. But the follow-up to this was really, and it does correlate, I guess, and it's interesting because I've never really put the 2 and 2 together as closely as Gary did in his email to us. But end-of-season award. So in his email, who's basically saying that they use that as their steering towards what trophies they give out at the end of season, which... is interesting. I've never heard that done before, and we've not done that. So, firstly, Mark, your thoughts on end of season awards, and and if you use them, how you use them?
Yeah. So I think it as a club, in our grassroots club, we have a end of season, presentation day. Within that presentation day, the club kind of stipulate that there's every player receives a trophy for playing at the club. And then there's 3 or 4 special trophies, and it's really down to the coaches to define what trophies they want in terms of categories, and for the coaches to define who would win each of those, each trophy or category. So the way I've kind of done it in the past, my kind of squad size is 12. It's kind of range from 10 to 12 or 13 over the last kind of 3 seasons. So the way I generally do it would have 4 kind of special trophies. I like to have a parents player of the year and a parents runner-up player of the year. So you can put the emphasis on the parents to decide who they see as the kind of players that have performed the best throughout the year. I have a player's player, so we ask each player individually to give us a nomination, and then we have a coach's nomination. I think the coach's nomination is the one that we normally kind of do that last of all. So we would ask the parents for their nominations, then ask the players, and then we would kind of mop up at the end with the coaches. And I think my view is as you go through the process, you've got an idea of probably 4 or 5 boys that are likely that have really shone this year, have worked super hard, or have really developed. So you've got an idea of what it's going to look like, but there's always surprises, and the big surprise is usually the players' player of the year, and it's quite interesting how that kind of pans out. It's you would think that player A would win it because they just work so hard in training, but actually it's a different boy, and it's not the most popular boy. It's just someone else. So it's quite interesting how it kind of works actually. And the other thing I should add is that you can only win 1 special award. So I think last season we had one boy that I think could have picked up 3 awards, or certainly 1 parent and player, but and would have probably won coaches, but obviously. You can't win 3 awards. We kind of cap it to 1, so we like it to kind of go mix it up a little bit. But yeah, I do like the end of season awards. I think it's great. The recognition's great and things like that.
Do you have runners up or just winners?
We have parents runner up.
Okay,
parents runner up.
So there's parents winner, parents runner up.
Yeah,
players player, coaches player. That's your 4.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So those 4 players will get 2 trophies essentially, and everyone gets 1 trophy for the season.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, and how's it been then? I mean, historically looking back, I mean, is there a danger that some people leave feeling flat, or did a right 4 players tend to win and everyone kind of accepts it?
I think in general the right players win it. I know that I've had probably one or two comments from parents in the past about their son not winning anything. I think sometimes you find that the same player wins every season. That not every season, but have won. There's some players that have never won it, haven't won anything, and there's players that have won it more than 1 year, and maybe they've won the parents twice, or they've won parents runner-up, or something like that, or they've won players. So I think there is a little bit of a danger that you can deflate players because it's.
Well, the player that might have been fifth might have been really close to getting it right, and the sixth might be miles off. So there is that, there might be some disappointment, but
and actually one thing, and we would have had last season, we would have had a fifth award actually, but the club kind of restricted us to four. So my assistant manager came up with the idea, and it was fantastic. We had captain's award, which we done at training, which was captain's player of the year, and it was for one of the boys won it last year. I think he was like so close to winning. One, as you said, he was like so close to winning.
He made like a special,
exactly.
Yeah, and where'd you go if you keep going? I mean, you go to 5, 6, 7, exactly. And everyone's getting 2 trophies, right?
Exactly. And the other, and this year we're going to do the same, but we're going to have it as most improved. Captain's award is most improved player this year,
and that'll be done at training outside of the presentation.
Exactly, yeah.
And do you set a criteria around this? So when you say like to parents, give us a choice, do you say right, this should be based on match impact or whatever it might be, or do you just say look, tell us your vote for the player that you think's been the best?
Yeah, so I usually phrase it with the parents to say that can you just tell us who the best coach's son's been this year?
and it's just the coach's boy always wins it.
Exactly, every time. No, I think I'm trying to think back. We put on about being the hardest working player.
Okay.
And I think
maybe for the players, you have a different criteria. Do you spell it out? I mean, I'm just curious whether you frame it in a way that kind of allows them to make more than just and there's no one than picking what they think is right, I guess. But a parent might be picking a player for a different reason that you might pick one, or another parent might pick one, right? Yeah, exactly.
So I think last year we went with our goals for the season. We had 100% honesty, 100% teamwork, and 100% football. So when we pitched it to the players around their voting, these are the things that we work on every week in training, in matches. Who do you think who kind of exhibits these kind of behaviours most each week? And that's how we kind of go with the players.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should we say how?
Yes.
Doing it with the young ones this season?
Yeah. Because it's a little bit different, right?
It is a little bit. And again, I don't, I think most clubs seem to have presentation days and end of season trophies for their players. I mean, it seems like that's quite common now.
Yeah.
I think it's one of our biggest expenses as a club, the trophies we buy, which, let's be honest, when you're a grassroots football club and you're a charity and you're trying to watch every penny, if you're going to spend literally thousands of pounds on trophies, you've got to have a point to doing it, haven't you? I mean, just because we've done it historically doesn't mean we should always do it moving forward.
Yeah.
And I'm not against the idea whatsoever. My slight problem with it is, I think this last week or the week before, that my older boy, who's under 10s, he's probably got 25, 30 trophies from different tournaments, things he's got already. And genuinely, he's not bothered. I mean, they're sitting a thing, he's not bothered.
Yeah.
I've got a box in my loft upstairs that has probably 12 trophies in it. Okay, I wasn't as good a player, which is part of the reason I've got less. But also, you got trophies when you actually won things and did stuff and stood out, and you didn't get one every single season. You got a medal. I got a few medals that I got, but you didn't get trophies. Trophies meant something, And again, I'm not trying to sound, I don't want to be old school, and we're supposed to be progressive in our thinking. So I think it's okay that the players get a trophy for the season. That's not an issue with that. But when you see players walking out with 2, sometimes even 3 trophies, because not everyone restricts it, I just think, is it necessary under 9s if you've got 3 trophies because you've been the manager's, you've got manager's choice and you've got parents' choice and you've got your season trophy as well, and
top goal scorer.
It's got, well, that's the other thing I was going to get to. That this criteria that I don't necessarily agree with either. But again, it's only personal preference. But how can, if you're not going to rotate your players around and give equal playing time to play up front, and you can have a top goal scorer trophy, I don't get that. Or if you're going to measure a player's success based on the goals they got, even though you're not saying that, then again, it seems unfair on the boy that always plays in goal or the boy that always plays at the back, right? So it's just got to be handled carefully, which is why I think a criteria is important. and setting out and saying, okay, again, a bit like the player reviews at the start of the season, say, okay, these are the player reviews we're going to be using. Just share, here's a blank one and the reason why and how we're going to do that. Fine. And these are the end of season awards and what we're going to call them. So whatever it is doesn't really matter, but this is what we're going to have. And this is the criteria on how you would achieve that award. So if it's coach's player, we're looking at this. You know, in our case, it'd probably be about, okay, the choices around probably around respect, effort and fun. You know, so that's our criteria. If it was the players one, I probably wanted to put it around teamwork, leadership out there, things like that. If it was the parents one, I probably want to put it around match impact because they see the games, right? They see training, so and looking at getting the ball quickly, making good choices, and playing tough. You know, so they've got a framework to work from. But tell them from the outset. All the players then have got an equal chance of winning it. Everyone understands the criteria and what's involved. And then whether or not you do, everyone gets one trophy for the season. Then your extra trophy for if they win that is absolutely fine. Because we've only got 7 players in our current under-7s team in the red team, I made the decision to say to the club, look, I actually don't want any of the normal trophies, the end-of-season ones. We're just going to give each boy a special trophy. And the criteria we had was 2 parents' nominations, 2 players' nominations, 2 coaches' choices, and 1 most improved, because that gave us our 7. And we got votes in from the players on the players' choices. We got votes in from the parents on the parents' choices. The coach had a chat around both the most improved and their choices. And we looked at all the votes that came in, and we made a decision to see where best fit. There was a bit of license there because you know there was, but ultimately everyone got some votes, which is quite nice. So it was spread out. But we kind of said, okay, they kind of got most there. So you know, Jimmy's going to get that one, and Bob's going to get that one, that kind of thing. So we made it work. But everyone's going to get 1 special trophy, all of equal value. No, not one's worth more than the other. They're all the same thing, and everyone's going to get 1 trophy on presentation day. I don't think they need 2 personally. I think they need 1. It'll be a nice reflection. It'll be a nice trophy. And I just thought, you know, I get it gets harder when you've got bigger team numbers and stuff. You know, well, I wouldn't go beyond 7 next season. We'll do it differently. We'll probably do it the way you're doing it now. But I just think it has to be handled carefully. I think the criteria has to be set out in advance, ideally again, which I haven't done it. But you know, we said the criteria we asked for nominations, but I didn't send it at the beginning of the season, which I wish I had done. You know, and it's just to get one of those things where you don't want to finish the season off with even one boy feeling a little bit flat because or girl because they haven't had what they thought they might get again. So it's just got to be handled very carefully, I think, and again use the right way. Along with the player reviews, it can be a tool that adds value to what you're trying to do, but used the wrong way, it can be one of those things that just drives the wedge in the gap between you and the player and the parents and what things are.
Yeah, great. And I think the way you've done it this year makes a lot of sense. I don't know how you could have got it past the club, but you've done well there. You have to teach where you get away with these things. But I think it makes sense. You've got 7 players, right? If you had 4 special trophies, you're going to have three of the players not winning something. And I think that
was my point to the club. Honestly, I don't under sevens. Is that right? That you literally divide the team in half and saying that I think you're great and I don't think you're as good as the other guys. And I couldn't do that genuinely as well.
And I think that's the other thing. That aside, I don't know how you would split that team because they've been so good this year. I think just picking up on a couple of points that you mentioned. I think one around player winning more than 1 trophy. I think you were saying it's a bit unfair on the other players. I actually think it's unfair on that player as well because all of a sudden you're putting this player on a pedestal. And coaches have this. Really you're the top goal scorer. You played all season up front. You're our top goal scorer. You're the coaches. You won the coaches award. You won the parents award. They walk away with 3 trophies, and all of a sudden they're thinking, well, I'm going to be the next Messi. Even at under 8s, right? You kind of putting them on that pedestal, and then it's a long way. It's a long fall for them if they're not doing as well next year. It's just not fair on that player.
No, that's a really good point. It probably isn't an advantage. In fact, it's probably a massive disadvantage for the player as well, isn't it? However much you want to recognise it, and if they've had a standout boy or girl that comes to training, that does all the things you want to do, that runs their socks off and deserves all the trophies out there, well, brilliant. But it probably isn't their best interest to give it to them. It probably isn't. Give them one and recognise it, definitely, but then spread some out elsewhere as well. It won't help that player, will it? It's a really good point, Mark, actually.
Definitely not.
I think you're in danger there of, probably bigging something up too much. You've got to be level-headed, right? Even failure or success, those younger year groups particularly, and I mean up to under 14s, I'm not talking about just little with ones. You've got to be quite level-headed with it. I mean, don't get too carried away with a good season or a good match or a good month, and likewise, don't get too downbeat on a bad season or a bad week because it can change quite quickly.
Yeah. There's a saying, isn't there? Things are never as bad as you think they are, and things are never as good as they actually are, or something like that. There's something. It's always like try and be a little bit level-headed in these
I think
things.
I know what you mean. Like, I'm going to agree with you.
I didn't say it too well, but it's something like that. I'm sure.
That could have been your final thought.
That could have been. That would have been a good final thought. I think just two other quick things. One that you mentioned, I think, is a great category. Is most improved, because it takes away. At the end of the day, you've
That's
got
relative,
team,
right? To the player,
exactly. Yeah, and especially when you've got maybe a team that's not right at the top end, you might have a real mixability team where and a certain player is just really developed. They were one of the not so strong in the group, and they've actually kind of kicked on, and they're right in the middle of the group, but they won't get recognised for winning a trophy because they haven't got massive impact in matches or this, that, and the other. But as a coach, you can just identify that person's improved so much.
Yeah.
I think that to me that's my most favourite trophy. Actually,
We couldn't have not had that one if we had coachability as our main criteria, because that's the most improved one.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. If you're going to be coachable, you're going to behave yourself, you're going to have a desire to learn, you can put effort and understand, you're going to get the most improved. You are, because you will be the most improved, I guarantee it. Whatever your starting point as to where you've been, you have the most value added. You know, because you can't, the two correlate 100%. If you're coachable and you put those things in, you will be the most improved player. You might not be the best player, but you'll be the most improved player.
Yeah, and the likelihood you're probably doing things outside of your training session as well.
Yeah.
And one other thing I know that we've spoken about actually is on the day, the presenting of the awards on the day, and I think that you're going to do it you talk about it actually, because it was your idea.
I forgot about this, but so the other thing here is about trying to make it not all about us as coaches, right? It could not be the coaches' show. And I'm really trying on this one, because I just feel like we're control freaks. So I certainly am. I want to control as much as I can of the environment we've got with these players. But that's
in
not
a positive
healthy.
sense.
Hopefully, but I don't think it is always healthy and positive. Even though you might, you got to control as much as you have to, but as little as possible, right? That's the way to do it. So for me, presentation day this year, for the first time ever, I've not done it. It could be a complete disaster, but let's see. Is to try and say, okay, look, we've given these different awards out, and every player's going to get one trophy. Maybe we can get different people to give us trophies out. So I think the plan is that we've got. Well, if you're going to help us out with what's the most improved, you're going to give out, because although you've been around, you've been busy coaching elsewhere, so we haven't seen you as much as you're not one of the coaches officially. Although you have a good input into that. So you're going to do the most improved. Me and Simi, my assistant coach, are going to give the coach choice each. Which is fair enough. We've vouched for that, so we're going to do those. And then we've got two parents to give out one of the parents' trophies each. And we're going to get two players to give out the players' trophies each.
Which I think that's the best one, right?
Ownership to them. You know, why not? They've voted, so they can give it out, and I expect a few words from each of them. So we'll tell the players and parents and everyone else maybe a week or so before who's won. Those individuals, so they know. Not everyone's going to know, be a surprise still. And we'll ask them to put down a few words about what they want to say about a particular player. It'll be hard for a 7-year-old to get up in front of the whole thing and say that thing, but that's character building, right? This is developing the player, the person, as well as the player. So using it as a tool for that as well. So it's not the Scott show. It's everyone's getting involved a little bit. It's all of us, parents, coaches, players, all helping out to make this hopefully be a success. So we're going to try that as well. So I'll feed back on.
I love the idea about the player presenting. I really do. I think it's great you got parents involved as well. I think that's brilliant. But I love the idea about the player presenting. I think it's a great experience for them. And again, it comes.
I mean, in the room, you've got all the players from all the squads. So there's 30 odd kids there plus their parents. So you can have probably 100 people in that room, and they've got to get up and say a few words with Mike in their face. Now, I'm not expecting chapter and verse about the season, but a couple of sentences about how well X player's done and the reason why. I think they can do that, and ownership again, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it comes back to what we've spoken about in the past around players. You're coaching them for football, but also you're coaching them for kind of with life skills and things like that as well, and for the future. And I think this is just a great opportunity. It's not about football, although it is about football. It's not. This is actually about them getting up, standing up in front of people, talking about their teammates. Well, I think it's brilliant.
I think it's going to pick up later, but the more I do this, especially the younger age groups, I think you have to coach the person first. I know we hear it a lot, but and that's not to be all kind of philosophical and a little bit kind of fluffy about stuff. I actually think that's the better way of getting the player anyway. You coach the person first, and the player will come. It really will. If you focus on the player first and you lose the person, I don't think you'll be able to maintain that. And I think when you focus on the player, and again, those coachability skills, and it's back to the player view there, good behaviour, good desire to learn, getting the effort right, helping with their understanding and their teamwork, then the technical and the physical and the match day stuff comes anyway. Yeah. If I focus on technical stuff and forget about the player, I won't get it. I don't think it happens. That it's a different podcast, definitely, but it's a good point, Mark.
Yes.
We've got to wrap up, I think.
I think so, yeah.
I've got just one more thing. So I think we spoke about player reviews and feedback and the season trophies. I think it's also an important thing about coach feedback. And I don't, getting that. I mean, I've never done it or asked for it, and I don't know how I would. I mean, people are very polite and nice, but that's British people for you, generally speaking, aren't they? Until it goes wrong, they're very nice to your face. But I've never asked for it, and would I be scared to? Maybe I would be, and we've done quite well, but I'd still be scared to ask for it. Not scared, maybe, but would I get honest feedback if I did ask for it? People are very polite and nice, but would they be willing to actually, Scott? I think you talk too fast. You can be a bit more intense on match days. You need to be. There's things there that, and I know we can video ourselves and kind of get an angle ourselves on stuff. But actually, if we're going to ask parents to accept our views on their players, should we not be willing to accept their views on us?
Yeah, totally agree. And I think again, I think it's about being open with parents, right? And I'm always open with the parents, say, look, I'm happy to take feedback on things, no issues at all. Yeah. And one or two parents do kind of say to me, oh, do you think we need to work on this or that? I usually tell them no, it's my way. So no, I don't. I normally
drop the player for
exactly. Yeah. Cross them off Player of the Year award. But yeah, I think it's about being open. But I think the great thing now about the level 2, and I think also into the UEFA B, they have these in situ visits, don't you? As you go through the qualifications, you have in situ visits where the FA come out and they don't assess you. They don't call it assess you, but they're there. They watch you. They give you feedback on your feedback in a session. And actually, I'd done a session at a development centre recently, and I got some kind of feedback from that. And I was very open. Some really good points that was given to me around what I could do.
I think you're right on that, Mark. But what I would say, that's coming from a kind of more trained eye, looking at coaches to coaches, and they will see things right. Yeah. I think sometimes it's interesting what parents see, because with all respect, parents haven't gone through the coach ed process and stuff, and they, all the wonderful work you're doing, they may see it very differently because their perception of what a good coach is very different to what you're doing on the pitch. And maybe something that looks a little bit more scrappy and gamey and messy and chaotic, they're thinking, geez, what is this guy doing? I thought he was supposed to be quite good and stuff, and and they don't get that, or they want to see more organisation, more I don't know. Maybe because that actually it just looks more structured. Everyone's kind of standing in straight lines. It looks like it's very organised. But just getting their perception, I think, from their parents' point of view, the same way you're giving yours from your coach's point of view. But it's definitely you've got to be brave and open to that, and it's got to be handled the right way. And it probably comes back to that whole bigger thing of having that, you said it at the outset, that kind of good communication channels open with the parents and stuff, and a holistic approach to this. One thing on its own is not going to work, but if you've got a good player reward system and you've got good player review systems and you've got an open channel back to you for feedback, you're putting the player ahead of the person ahead of the player and things. I think all these things probably, again, is part of that environment stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree totally, yeah.
All right, I've got a final thought, unless you've got one.
No, you go for it.
It's short and sweet, because we've gone past the hour already, so just a short one. It was a tweet, I think, that I saw popped out, and I thought it was quite good, and it just said, the best player development is coach development. And I think it's a fair point. You can argue a little bit, but I think actually, what, if you can develop yourself as a coach, then that's going to really help develop your players, right? Yeah. So, investing in time in doing, obviously, the official courses and qualifications and whatever else is great, but also the unofficial coach education stuff, podcasts, blogs, all that kind of thing. Yeah. You've written a blog.
I have, yes.
That springs now. I think we are going to post it and share at some point. Yeah,
we will do.
And this week, welcome. So, okay, superb. So we've got that coming out. But, hopefully, again, all the things that we're doing with the podcast and what Mark's going to do with the blog, it's just to get debate going and share ideas and get us thinking, with the ultimate aim of hopefully trying to ask that question, can we do things better to hopefully give the best possible experience for our young players? Sound all right?
Yeah, spot on.
Cool. Busy week next week with football. We've got Champions League final, the Europa League final. Yeah. There's a few other things going on as well.
Home Nations coming up.
Home Nations coming up. Yeah. So lots of things to talk about when we get together in a week or so's time.
Yeah. Hopefully we got some guests lined up to come on as well. So we have a couple of interviews coming up as well.
Yeah. So definitely. And I think with the summer break coming up as well, we've got an opportunity to get a few of those probably recorded and ready to go out for the start of next season.
Yes.
Open to any ideas around anything you want us to talk about or people you want us to approach for the podcast. We're still getting a lot of traction from email and a bit through Twitter. You can reach us on email at info@thesoccercoachingpodcast.com and on Twitter at SoccerCoachCast. Is that all right, Mark?
Perfect.
All done for the week?
Yeah,
all
wrapped up.
Good, man. Have a good week. Cheers, everybody. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye.